Welcome back, my beautiful soul sisters. I'm really excited about today's podcast because we are winding down on, 2 weeks left? A little bit under 2 weeks left of 2022. And I really wanted to take this podcast today to honor the endings of 2022 because we often all hear about the New Year's intentions and our New Year's goals for the next year, but we really can't start something new if we haven't properly ended or closed the past year. So, this podcast is going to honor the endings of 2022. And for today's podcast, you are going to want to have a journal and a pen with ink or a pencil for you and a quiet, comfortable space for you to reflect. Welcome to my show. I'm Shelly Bond. One of my many roles is a mama, a healer, a spiritual practitioner, a yogi, a soul sister, and a forever learner and grower on this planet and this thing called life. One of my many dharmas, my life's purpose, is to bring as much love and healing to the world as possible. I've created this space as a connecting point for women to bring us together, to have the hard talks, to share these raw, vulnerable pieces of ourselves, and to know that you are not alone. I'm right here with you walking this path. I love you. Oh, hello, my beautiful sisters. Oh my goodness, the holidays are almost here. Are you surviving? Are you thriving? Are you prepared? Are your packages wrapped and under the tree? Are you scattering, frantic, still doing some last minute shopping? I honor wherever you are on this holiday season, or maybe you're celebrating different holidays and you're somewhere else. And I feel like this year, the endings of 2022, I really wanted to encourage you that when we get to this self care practice, or if you can, just find a quiet space. And I know that in a house full of kids, that sometimes that's just going in your bedroom or your bathroom and closing the door. And I know that I've had many times where I just go into my closet because I really want you to take this self-care practices that I'm going to include here serious, because to start a new fresh year in 2023, which is so crazy to think of, we really have to honor and close and really end last year. And throughout the practices, we're going to reflect a lot. And I encourage you that when we do these journaling prompts, that you can pause the podcast and reflect and really just take this moment. And if you haven't acknowledged, it was winter solstice on the 21st. So that was the darkest day of the year, darkest night. And it really is this time to honor that solstice, that darkness within ourselves. And it's also the welcoming back of light, because it's dark and it's been cold. It's been so cold. It was negative 16 degrees yesterday. It was so cold. I went and practiced yoga with my soul sister, and I parked in front of the cluster mailbox. I got the mail. I had a pair of mittens, the kind that like flips out and your half of your fingertips are exposed on your four fingers. And the time I checked the mail, got to my car, I felt like I was getting frostbite. I have never experienced cold like that before, and it was the most pain ever. I don't think I've ever experienced pain from cold like that. And I had to sit for about 30 minutes with my full winter coat and my hat and my gloves on. And I put my hands between my legs. And Jack was like, "Mama, put your hands in your armpits." And I was like so cold, and it made me feel so grumpy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this cold. So with this winter solstice, we can really just acknowledge this wintering within ourselves, as we have talked about before, and getting through these holidays with family. I know that it can be a time of joy and a time of comfort and all the things, but it can also be a great time of stress. I know my husband and I just get some weird energy, and it is a challenge. It's a challenge because I want to feel all this joy and this merriment and holiday peace, and then my husband and I are just kind of bashing heads, and we're having a lot of family come in town for like between my family and his family, 9 days. So it's going to be a lot of family and craziness, and it's creating a lot of stress. So I'm just really honoring that. And yeah, it is. There's so much when it comes to honoring the endings. And I really want you to, if you haven't already, to find yourself in that comfortable space and kind of make this a little ritualistic if you can. I have an incense lit here if you have a candle, or I also have this amazing, it is an amethyst with a lavender essential oil that one of my soul sisters makes, and I rub that on my third eye. And maybe it's kind of connecting that touch point, that scent piece in. And maybe if you have a special crystal, you could bring that with you. And maybe even if you need to just sit in your living room with your kids around with your headphones on, I get it. I have 3 kids and 3 dogs, and I know it's chaotic this time of year, and I'm actually making them all read, and they're acting like it's punishment. They have to read. Oh, what a bad mom. But they're reading. They're out there. So if you hear anything in the background, it's because my 3 kids are home for winter break, and we're just doing this. And I just think of 2022, and for you too, maybe you could just kind of, let's take a moment and just kind of find your seat, find your grounding, and just put a hand on your heart and just acknowledge however you're feeling today with a big breath that comes into your heart center. Breathe it in. Melt the shoulders away from the ears and allow a sigh of relief, like you've arrived. You're here. You're exactly where you need to be. Bring that breath in. Maybe draw the shoulders up to the ears. Exhale, let it go. 2 more of those. Breathe it in. Soften and let go. 1 more full breath in. Let go. And just take a moment, if you haven't already, with that hand on the heart. And just acknowledge yourself. Acknowledge whatever is going on in your life right now. Whatever is spiraling around your heart, your shoulders, your neck, the head, the top of the head, spiraling down to the core and the abdomen, to the hips, all the way down to the roots and to the feet. And just honor, just acknowledge without judgment. Just be with yourself and exactly how you are, because there's no right or wrong. This is exactly where you need to be. Exhale that out. And I'm excited about this. I am huge on growth and personal reflection. If you haven't read my book, Awaken You, it is available on Amazon right now, but it was such this healing journey of writing my story and getting it out on paper in like descriptive storytelling ways, which I love because I am a born writer. You know, what's funny is that if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I was a writer, I would say, no, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible speller. I barely read. But now that's changed and shifted because I really allowed myself to just show up for what life is giving me. And so as we reflect, we're going to take kind of moments here to reflect. And as I mentioned earlier, so have your journal if you haven't already, or go grab that. And make sure you have a pen with ink, because the worst is when you go to lay down and you're all comfortable and then your pen does not have ink. So make sure you have that, possibly a backup pen. Always a backup pen is a good idea. Or a pencil if you like to write with pencil. And if that works for you, maybe an eraser. That's always nice, because sometimes it's like, no, that's not what I said. I love like pen on paper. It's my favorite. It makes me feel excited and all of the feelings. And so now if you have your journal, find your seat. And if it feels good, maybe you could turn on some instrumental music in the background. I'm on YouTube Red, and I put on some lovely healing frequencies to help clear energy. And it sounds wonderful, and it really helps put me into this good space of feeling, because remembering that how we feel with our intention and our thoughts is what manifests into our lives. And so part of this kind of closing ceremony, if you will call it, is to really allow us to have closure for this last year, because a lot of us, especially if you are on a spiritual path or a yogi or call yourself whatever you are, manifester, that if we want to manifest and open new doors, create new goals, that this is something that I felt like I've really been missing in my life, is that we have to honor the endings and we have to have closure in our life. So this practice is going to be geared towards allowing that closure, to close those doors, because for every closed door, a new one opens. And sometimes closing doors is painful, and change is painful, transition is painful. Resistance is really natural in life, and we're going to honor all of that. We're really going to acknowledge here in this moment of what do we need to bring closure to? What ending do we really need to endure or experience to move to this next new year, to create new energy? Because we can't create new energy if we have all of this yucky stuff hanging around. If you've heard that expression, having your eggs in too many baskets, or your energy, I just imagine the energy is just so dispersed everywhere and it's hard to focus. Well, it's hard to focus because we haven't closed. And so when we are acknowledging the endings or processing 2022 and all of the changes that we've experienced, because we are not the same woman today, here in this moment, that we were at the beginning of this year. We're just not. We've changed so much. And whether you can acknowledge that or not, you're not. You're not the same person you were when you first woke up this morning, right? Isn't that crazy to think of? I think of my kids. Kids, if you are a parent, look at them 1 year and then 1 year later. Wow, see that growth and that change. Or think of your partner and think of how much they've changed. But this practice is not all about that. That was just a moment to reflect. This is about you and honoring yourself and your change and your growth. So with this practice, I'm excited too, because the next podcast, we're going to focus on intention setting for 2023. But really, this part is almost more important than the goal creating, because we can't create new goals and have these big dreams again if we haven't closed the old doors and ended this energy. So as we are here, perhaps we can set the intention to ground our energy, to maybe bring our awareness to what endings that we need to create. And so in your journal, I would like for you to start a fresh, clean piece of paper. And sometimes it feels really freaking good to, when you're done writing all of this stuff, to, like, I have my beautiful soul sister, and she has a beautiful fireplace that she makes these raging, amazing fires. And sometimes it's ripping out these pages and burning them in the fire. And if you don't have a huge fireplace, I have a big, you would have to use like a glass bowl, but you can use a glass bowl with water in a sink, a little bit of water, and you can burn and watch them. So if you have a journal that maybe you can tear the pages out, or maybe if this is something that you want to just keep and reflect on, knowing that there's no right or wrong, whatever works best for you. So at the top of a clean piece of paper, a clean slate for this 2022 endings, you're going to write 2022 endings at the top of your page. And so if you need to take a moment, you can pause, or I'll give you a moment to write 2022 endings at the top. And then you can do a bullet point if that feels good, or if you're like a number, you can number 1. I don't have these written down in numeric form, but if that feels good for you, if you are an organizer, I get it. You can write your number 1. So you're going to kind of, before you write, I want you to just kind of reflect with me in my voice, and I'm going to share some of my stories too of my endings. And if you want to do this practice later, or if you want to just kind of ruminate in your mind, you can do that. But I really encourage you to really acknowledge your endings. And you have to take time to literally do it for it to actually work. Because I know that when I first started reading self-help books, I would listen and not do any of the practices and nothing would change. And then when I started actually doing the practices in the self-help books, I'm like, oh, it actually changes you. It helps you because you're doing the work. The book isn't helping you. You're helping yourself. So you're going to bring up what were your energies or feelings around 2022? Just all around a culmination of everything. And if you want to, you can pause this audio if you want to do this practice with me and really just kind of bring up the feelings of what did this last year feel like for you? What did it feel like in your heart? What did it feel like in your roots? What did it feel like in the top of your head? What did it feel like? Was there a lot of change? Was there a lot of transition? Was there a lot of stagnancy? Was there a lot of stuck energy? Was there a lot of pain? Were you in physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain? What was it? So just really allow yourself to bring that up. And when I think of this year, I felt expansive. I felt a little stuck this year too. And then I also felt really grateful. I felt really grateful. And in my relationships, I had a lot of struggle with my husband, and we've really been working on healing that. But it's interesting because I'm noticing that we are falling back in some of our old toxic cycles around the holidays. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's been a very transitional and challenging year as a parent for me as well. My daughter is almost a teenager and she got her period. If you didn't listen, I talked a whole episode about when Junie got her first period. And it's really interesting. My kids, I went from being able to like be the mom and being in control of everything, and now they want more independence. And there's a lot of resistance between my kids and I, especially my middle child. It's been really challenging adjusting the way that I'm parenting, and very frustrating also as a parent, because it is hard when you go from controlling everything, even like what they wear. Something as simple as my fifth grader, when it's snowing and cold, he won't wear his snow pants because he thinks they're for idiots. And it's like, what? Like, have common sense. I hate the word common sense. So I omit that word, and I omit the word hate. I'm saying it, but this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling it's just been this frustrating energy with him. It's been really hard. And then now we're finding out that he has some learning challenges, that he possibly, most likely, is dyslexic, as well as our daughter is. And that's been painful. It's painful. And I feel like in moments I shove it down and I have to allow grief. So those are my big points. And if you haven't already, I would really encourage you to write down what your feelings or what the energy of 2022 has been for you. Like, what has it been? And then when we reflect back, I actually did this practice yesterday with my soul sister. It was for the winter solstice. So when you're kind of going from season to season, we want to reflect the last 6 months. So from winter solstice to summer solstice, so what was that, June 21st to December 21st, perhaps you can bring up that what was the feelings and the energy those in these specific last 6 months. Maybe there was something that was outstanding that stood out, that was like a miracle, amazing. Maybe there was something that was really unsettling, something that was weird, or something that was like, I did not expect that to happen. Maybe you could just take this moment and just reflect, like, what was like between summer to now, and just pause here if that feels good for you. Or if you want to, you can hear my reflection of from summer solstice. My husband and I almost were going to separate, and I even had talked about a divorce, and that was like really hard, and I was very like determined that was going to be. And we decided to work it out, that we have been together for 20 years, and we actually just had our 19-year anniversary, and that we were going to try, and we set all of these goals together. We talked about communicating more clearly, about being a team, and we have a big goal of finishing our basement, which it's pretty cool because we actually did start our basement. It's in like phases, but we have like the first phase done. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see that like we have followed through some of those things, and some of those things have kind of fallen down the garbage disposal. Yeah. And I notice it. Maybe you can acknowledge too, like pain. I kind of can feel energetic, emotional pain, maybe from the world, from this like transition of, right, from the pandemic to not, to war in the world, to separation. There's been a lot of separation in the world. And it's sad. And I hold space. And the only way that we can create non-separation is just be a loving human. And yeah, it's been interesting. And as like that empath energy that I have been learning how to root and ground my energy, that I can still take it on. I can still feel the pain and the heaviness of the world, but it does feel like it's softening bit by bit. So really allowing yourself that kind of chunking those from summer to winter. And then kind of reflecting back, which for me, it's kind of hard to go from summer to, would it be spring? Yes, like spring. So like the first 6 months of the year. So going from, I guess, like if you can think of when 2022 first started until like all of fall and no, how did the seasons go, Shelly? To spring. I don't know why my brain is having a really hard time now. It goes from fall and then, no, it goes from winter to spring and then summer. And so, yeah, maybe we can reflect. That was interesting. My brain was like pausing. So reflect if you can, rewind back, blah, 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 back. What was the energy and feelings around the start of the year? I know for me, I was like super gung-ho because I had just published, or no, I was still working on publishing my book. I had a goal that I was going to publish my book in 2021 at the end of the year, but editing and everything just took a lot longer. And then I actually self-published 2 books, and that was really awesome. So I felt really determined and excited about my book and being a published author and sharing my book with the world. And that brought up really good, like motivating energy. And I know that I did a book club with a soul sister. It kind of petered off and on throughout the year, but we read a few like spiritual books and that was good. And then I noticed myself that I didn't read for about 3 months. And that's where I kind of felt stuck. I had this kind of letdown and self-doubt period that surfaced for a while for me. And it just was. And I hold space for that. And I hold space for that pain. And I know that my husband and I, like even our relationship has just been kind of up and down and all around. And just, I have been allowing myself to feel what it feels like in my body, even when it's painful. And I have noticed, if I kind of look back, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overwhelm. And I noticed that I've actually been learning I'm almost done with my 300-hour yoga teacher training, my beautiful soul sisters. Like legitimately, I'm just waiting for a passing grade for my last 2 finals, which I'm really excited. But it's like when we have fear and overwhelm, it is the underlying base is the fear of death, the fear of the unknown. And that comes up. And it's interesting because it's like when we can acknowledge anxiety and overwhelm, because sometimes I have experienced anxiety so intensely that it just completely takes me over. And I turn into like this monster of yelling and yeah. And with this like huge, we had a big transition too this year. At the beginning of the year, it was sending my boys to school. And that was a huge transition too. And still just homeschooling my daughter. And I get 1 day a week to myself, and that's been kind of magical. So yeah, there's been a lot of energy. So maybe if you haven't paused and you can just reflect kind of on those chunks, like the first 6 months of the year, and then the second 6 months of the year. It feels good to just take that time to reflect. And even if you're not writing and you're reflecting in your mind, just reflect. My mind can see in like pictures. I'm really good at visualization. So I can almost just like see this unfoiling, almost like a movie in the eye of my mind. I can see kind of the feelings, and I can see my relationships, and I can see boundaries. I've made really healthy boundaries in my relationships, and that feels really good. That feels really fucking good. I really love it. And okay, so now we move on. And so we are going to kind of reflect. And did you set any intentions? Words are not coming out correctly, Shelly. Good day. Good day. Okay. Come on back, sister. So, did you set any intentions for 2022? I remembered that it was probably 2 years ago. I watched a Glennon Doyle short. It was around New Year's, and she taught me to set a New Year's word, a word for the year, instead of like setting these cheesy goals that a lot of us set and then we don't follow through, or like working out, or what is it? Did you set any intentions? What were your intentions? My intention that I set my word was awaken. I published my book, Awaken You. And so I have an alarm on my phone set for 9 a.m. every day. And literally every day at 9 a.m., my phone says awaken. And it chimes with this beautiful chime. And then I pause, no matter what I'm doing, and I say awaken. And so that has been my goal for me. To awaken means to become present, to be here in the now, to stop worrying, to let all of the shit go, and to just be present and show up for what life is giving me. That was my intention. Did I always follow through with that? No, I did not. But that's okay, because I had an awareness, and intention is huge, but we have to go with the flow of life. So maybe you can take a moment if you need to pause the audio and reflect. And did you have any intentions? Did you have any goals? I guess I did have a goal too. Another one of my goals was to publish my book. And I did. I published Awaken You, From Pain to Healing, A Woman's Way of Waking Up to Her Life. And then I also self-published Biddy BS Christmas Magic, which I did not share this with you, but I have to share like this joy of this magical moment where it was the last day before my kids' winter break, was just like last Friday. And I got to go into Jack's second grade classroom, and I got to read my children's picture book, Biddy BS Christmas Magic. And it was so magical. And it actually just like, it made me feel so joyful and so happy, and brings up like literal tears of joy. And all of these kids got to sit on their little carpets, and it was Polar Express Day, and the school was like decked out, and the art teacher made a giant like replica of the Polar Express, like front, what is the front? The engine train. And they had all these hanging snowflakes and maybe like 5 little Christmas trees against the wall with lights, and it felt so magical. And like I said, the kids were dressed up in their jammies, and they got to bring their stuffies to school, and they sat on the floor, and I was so excited. His teacher, Jack's teacher, said, "We have a real author bringing her book, reading her book to us." And the kids were so excited and asking all these questions, and I was feeling so excited. And I read the book with all my voices. I love reading books with voices. And I could feel a little nervousness, but it was mostly just like so much excitement to share my book, and then looking at each of the kids' faces and smiling. And it just was like, oh. And I got done, and then the kids got to ask me questions. And I was sitting in this little rocking chair at the front of the classroom, and they were all down by my feet. And oh my gosh, it was just like, oh, you wrote that book. How did you do that? How long did that take you? And just, it was amazing. And I remember when I said, if you love to draw, if you love to write, keep drawing and keep writing, because one day you could be up here sharing what you created with other people around you. And they were like, oh. And I left in my car, and I was just like, oh, I called my sister, was like, Mimi, it was so magical. And then I got home, and my daughter actually had one of her besties over for a sleepover from the valley. And I busted out all my old portfolio books and looked at all my pictures. And I just felt this like sense of, oh my gosh, I did that. And that's so amazing. And we looked at all these picture books that I created 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago. This book I created 9 years. It was 9 years, almost 10 years ago. I drew all the pictures, and it took me 9 freaking years to get it together and publish it. And that feeling, oh, it's inspiring. And I hold that with me. I hold that, and I bring that feeling up with me. So that was one of my intentions that came to fruition. And maybe here we can pause, and we can acknowledge in 2022 And with your next bullet point or number, I'm not sure what number we're on, but if you are doing the numeric form, you know, you can count it out. What were your great struggles and challenges in 2022? What was really challenging you? What was a struggle for you in 2022? And if you want to, you can pause. You can pause the audio and reflect. What was really struggling for me? That self-doubt. This year feel like I have had this big breakthrough with self-doubt. I experienced it. I saw it. I noticed it. And I wallowed a little bit in self-pity when my book didn't become a New York Times bestseller, because I have to remember that the universe has its own magical, perfect timing, and that my plans don't always go exactly the way that I intend for them to. I did have self-doubt with that, but I also had magical moments because I did get to go sit in a book club of like 12 women who read my book and talk about my book. Maybe it was 8 women, but it was really magical. And yeah, and I know that I've had lots of struggles with a lot of procrastination. I did start my teacher training, my 300-hour teacher training, and then I noticed when the assignments would get hard or there was a lot of work to do, I would just pause and not do it. There was one time where I just paused and didn't do my schoolwork for like 3 weeks, and I had to allow my humanness. And then, yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of struggles with unrealistic expectations. And a big struggle between Rex and I was we were actually driving to a work Christmas party of his big contractor at this really nice restaurant. And we were on our way, and he came home, and he just, he had had a few beers, and I just get upset when he has a few beers and drives. And then he was like, we had a breakdown in the parking lot. He's like, you think I'm this bad person and you're always waiting for me to fail, but I am not a failure. I am a good person. And I sat there, and he just poured out his heart. And he was like, you are so hard on me, and I can't do this with you anymore. Like, I don't even want to go to the Christmas party anymore. Let's not even freaking go. And we had just had our anniversary, and we had just had a friend pass away. And it's been like a tough month, a hard, dark energy, dark night of the soul month. We didn't really get to celebrate our anniversary and acknowledge our space together. But then we kind of did, because we got to have one night alone in a hotel. So we kind of did a little bit, but just not up to my expectations. But he sat and he poured his heart out, and I just really just opened up, and instead of having this kind of bucking head energy that Rex and I have, I listened. I really freaking listened. And then I felt like bad. And he was like, why are you so freaking hard on me? You're so hard on me for everything. And it's interesting because my perspective is, you're so freaking hard on me. You micromanage everything I do. It's like his expectations of our house, that it needs to be so clean all of the time. And then his expectations of what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And it's like our conversations that we have lately have been few and far. And then the ones that we do have, because he's working all of the time running a business, which I get, it's a lot of stress, that we've not been communicating, and it's been just really like business oriented. Like our relationship has drifted back into the business realm of like the kids and the house and the finances. And that sucks. It sucks because I don't feel emotionally supported by him, and he doesn't feel emotionally supported by me. And I just let him talk and talk and talk. And then I just said, wow, like, I'm really sorry. I'm noticing that because I'm really freaking hard on myself. So I'm really hard on myself. And then I am really hard on you. And he expressed that he was really like stressed out. He's like, you don't understand how hard it is. I have you and me always fighting, and the kids and the house and the dogs. And then I have a business, a company to run with 5 employees and contractors and homeowners and the supply companies. And he's like, I am stressed out all of the time. And when you're stressed out and yelling at me, I'm just going to give that back to you. And I was almost like, rawr. I wanted to like jump down his throat. And then it was like, no, Shelly, what you put out comes back to you. And I am receiving back exactly the energy that I am giving to him. And I haven't been being this nurturing wife. I haven't been being really supportive, because I get mad and upset when he doesn't come home until like 6 or 7 o'clock at night, when I know his partner's like on the road at 4:30 every day to pick up his son because my husband is a workaholic. Like he is a workaholic and he does a fucking great job and he's really successful and he's doing amazing. And I acknowledge that and I probably don't tell him enough. I don't share with him that he's doing great because maybe I feel like my shortcomings and my failures are his. And it's like, no, and I haven't fucking failed at anything. But it's so interesting that my inner critic likes to say that I have. So that was one of my big experiences of my struggles. But also so much growth there. There was so much growth there. Okay, and because we always like to focus on the negative, because weirdly enough, our brain does have this negativity bias, we're going to switch to the goodness and the good of 2022. So let's kind of, we're going to focus on the goodness before we move to what endings that we need to embark on. So perhaps when we kind of focus on the goodness or the realness of life, that maybe what were some of those unknown, surprising moments that happened? I guess one of my unknown, surprising moments was that moment sharing my book in my son's classroom. That surprising moment of my sister surprising me with a book club and getting to share my book. Surprising moments was meeting two soul sisters at a women's retreat, and a beautiful women's retreat. That was a transitional moment for me too, is like, I got to go to this women's retreat this summer, and it was like this huge awakening and awareness that, gosh, I love being with women and I love healing with women on deeper levels. It was like, yes, Shelly, this is what you're meant to do. I also had a surprising moment of like a book idea coming to me to write a book about alchemizing empath energy. And I've also noticed a block from my memoir. I was writing my memoir hard, and it's been over a year that I've been like not feeling the vibes. And I just acknowledge that. So maybe you could write, what are some of those unknown or surprising moments that appeared? This is a good one. My soul sister, Jess, and I did our winter solstice practice, and she was saying that these last 6 months has been just like a time for lessons and just kind of learning from your experiences. And so with that, we can kind of reflect that on ourselves. And what were some of life's big 2022 lessons, kind of takeaways? So you can think of those really challenging times and trying times and how you were forced to grow. Because the most challenging experiences in our lives are when we grow the most, believe it or not. Like I think of that moment with my husband and I sitting in that truck, having this huge, almost like it could have been a blowout, but instead of being like this feisty fighter, I just softened and really allowed myself to freaking listen. Do you listen? Do you listen to your partner? I feel like a lot of the times we want our voice heard so bad. And I know with me, I can like shove my opinion and what I want. And then I kind of fail or falter at listening to him and actually like understanding that he has feelings too, because he puts up such this strong front and like that he's this strong, manly man. And I think it was probably like so long ago, like 15 years ago. It was like around Christmas time. And it was like my husband and it was something. And he said, I have feelings too. And he said that to me. And I was like, oh yeah, you do. Oh, I don't know why. It was like, I blocked that like, oh, you don't have hard feelings at all. Cause you're just like this hard man who just doesn't feel. And you're just like, bah. And I have to remember that like, he has feelings too. He's sensitive, even though he's like shows that he's this hard, tough man. Like he's a softie, deep within, but he puts up this big old angry front. I'm like, what lessons were we taught this year? Oh, I've learned a lot from my kids this year in 2022. I've learned that I don't get to control them all of the time. That's been really trying. I've learned that I have to shift the way that I do things, the way that I communicate with them. I've learned also that I have to create boundaries with them because they will walk all over me. And I've learned that I have to be like a tougher mom because it's different from having toddlers and then young children to now like tweens and teenagers. It's way different. And I can't just be their best friend all the time. I have to create these boundaries. And sometimes I do have to be the mean mom, is what my kids call me. I'm like, I have to because I need those boundaries. And even with my husband, too, like creating boundaries with husband and with my birth mother, like that has been a huge lesson, is that I have to create boundaries and I choose not to spend time with people that are not in alignment with me, people that I don't feel that like uplifted feeling, and people that I kind of feel that negative draw of energy, those like blood life suckers. Like I don't spend time with people like that. I'm very choosy on who I spend my time with. And the way that I have kind of weeded that out is like how I feel around people. And if I feel good and great and uplifted around this person, then yeah, you're my people. And if I don't, I'm like, no, I will just say, no, thank you. And this is another thing, is learning to say no. Have you learned yet to say no instead of always saying yes and draining your energy? I used to always be a yes, 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 people pleaser. I've really learned in my end of my 30s. This is like coming up to the end of my 30s. I'm going to be 40 in June 10th, Gemini energy. That saying no is so healthy, that you have to create those boundaries and say no. And when you say yes, like really mean yes, like, yes, I want to do this. Yes, not just like, maybe. This is something I've been teaching my kids, is you are a decisive human who you choose yes or you choose no. There's no maybe or sure, kinda, maybe. No, you are a decisive human. You pick yes or no. So boundaries has been something that has taught me a lot about myself. And so moving to our next prompt. So if you haven't, you can pause that and write. or if you want to, you can always write down these prompts. I'm saying it a little late, and then you can journal on your own. I love journaling in bed before I fall asleep. It's like my favorite. It's like so yummy and snuggly. And my kids are in bed, my house is quiet, and dogs are asleep. It's like, yes, peace. So in 2022, what did you learn about yourself? What have you learned about yourself? And this could be what you've learned about yourself in struggles, in hard times, in pain, in suffering, in surrender, and even those happy, great, wonderful moments. I've really learned that I was in this false pursuit of happiness, like many of us. And I've really learned to transition from that false sense of happiness to joy. And I've really learned to allow myself to find joy in the moment, because it's here. And sometimes I do have to look for it. Sometimes I think I say, like, you don't have to look for it. It's already here. Sometimes I have to explore joy. And like lately, Jack has been so cute. And Jack and Junie just got braces. And he's just like so cute with his glasses and his braces. And he's just getting so big. And we have this Elvis record. It's like Elvis holiday music, like from old, like Elvis when he was a baby. And we've been putting on the record, and he loves to dance with me in the living room. And I'm just like, so much joy just like pausing and dancing. I experience so much joy when I lay in bed with my kids at night, because I find like they're not destroying everything, and I'm not getting upset about all the things that's happening around the house and the messes. And I'm like, I can just like be in those moments. Just joy. Have you allowed yourself permission to experience joy lately? Really, it's the holiday season. It is the time of the Hallmark season of joy. But for me, I've learned that happiness is not something that I'm always going to experience, but joy, I have experienced it. I don't think it's something that doesn't exist, because I have, but I don't feel like the universe put us on this planet to always be this happy, magical unicorn, even though I am a magical unicorn. What else have you learned from yourself? I have learned that I need to rest, that I need to sleep more, that I need to actually like honor my sleep, because I went years of militant waking up at 5 a.m. and going to bed at whatever, 10 or 11. And I have learned, especially with the wintering and the solstice, that I need to rest in these cold months. And I go to bed, I've been going to bed at like 9:30, and that's fine. And I have been off and on waking up, circadian rhythm reset with my kids. But this morning, I was up at like 5:45, just like naturally, like, okay, Shelly, get up and do your yoga. I have learned that I have to have a self-care practice. I've learned that when I don't take time for me to move my body, to be mindful about movement and to sit and meditate or do my gratitude practice at night or in the morning, or even just sit on my meditation cushion, even if the kids are awake for 5 minutes, like I am more short-tempered. I experience anxiety and overwhelm a lot more because I'm not centered, I'm not grounded. I've learned how to ground my energy, which I've always been a very, right, identified as this empath who I feel everything what everyone's feeling. And I'm still working on that. I feel energy around me. I feel dogs' energy. I feel trees' energy. I feel earth energy. I feel people's emotional states. I can feel that heavy negative pain of the world. And I've really been learning how to ground. I've learned how to protect my energy, but the thing about these protective bubbles that I've been creating is that they always pop, and then I'm like, "Brr," and then I'm bogged down and I'll get really lethargic, and I just have to sleep. Sleep again is my saving grace. Rest and relaxation, Shelly. This is something that this will be for next episodes on the intention settings, is that I'm going to allow myself permission to rest, to like do nothing, which is really hard for me. I'm a busybody. I'm like, my body feels so much energy that movement for me is my way of processing. And my son was like, Mom, you never relax. You never. I'm like, okay, I do. I'm learning that. I'm learning it. And even for me, like making a mala is relaxing because it's meditative. I can have my attention and my focus and my awareness on it. And I love that. What have you learned about yourself this year? Okay. So if you haven't, pause or write, and let's move on, my lovelies. What have you manifested this year? If you are a master manifester or not, if you know or don't know, with our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, we create our reality. Really, what you believe about yourself is what comes true for you. And so, have you been a master manifester? Have you created? I know I had a girlfriend who created a big change, and she moved to Florida with her family. And I know she manifested that. It's been many years in the making of like moving and creating a new life for her and her family. If you're listening, I love you, Melody. I miss you. Sending you so much love this holiday season, my darling soul sister. What have you manifested? What change have you made in your life? Have you made a self-care? Have you manifested a self-care practice? Have you manifested a healthier body? Have you taken back the power of your mind, of your thoughts? What have you manifested? It's interesting because a lot of us, we think of like the physical like aspect, and my whole life, I moved 49 times as a kid, has been to like when things get hard to move. And even with Rex and I, this is our fifth house that we've bought. We sold 5 houses. And I even find that in myself, like, oh, I need to move. And I have this big master plan of getting a house with land, and I want to build a healing center and have this magical property because nature is just like, I need nature. Nature needs me. I need nature. Nature needs me as much as I need nature. But I haven't moved. I haven't moved in 2.5 years, which is like weird for me. Like, oh my gosh, I've lived here. Actually, the first house Rex and I bought, we lived in for 7 years. And that was really weird that we lived there for so long. And I've even had friends like kind of like talking crap about me moving so much. I'm like, you don't understand me and how I work. And if you did, you wouldn't say that because that's kind of rude and hurtful. It's my way of, and I see that. It's like, I see that, but I haven't had that. I haven't had any new like huge things. We're finishing our basement. But so for me, like what I've manifested has been kind of like my book I manifested. I brought that to life. And I really, over these last 9 years, have created just like I feel like I have a really solid mindset. I do. I work hard on it. It's not something that just like has came organically. It has been something that I've worked many years at. I feel like I've manifested a very healthy body, a very healthy spirit, and a very healthy mind. I feel so grateful. I have such a healthy body because I take care of it. I feed my body healthy foods, but I've also been, it's interesting, I haven't eaten gluten in like years upon years upon years. Like for freaking 8 years, I've been like, no gluten. I like occasionally have had a pizza or a beer, like a gluten wheat beer. But I recently have started listening to my body and like I've been like craving sourdough bread, which is processed a little bit differently. And I've eaten sourdough bread this year. I've eaten rye bread. Junie actually, they were all out of gluten free, this Pamela's gluten free baking mix. And all they had was like organic all purpose flour. And I almost was like, no, but Junie loves baking. So I was like, okay, Shelly, just let her, like this one time. I know wheat is not that healthy for you, but it's like every once in a while, like I feel like if I'm like 90% doing my good things, then I can squeak in a little bit. And so I had a cookie and I didn't feel so shitty, maybe a little bloated, but not so bad. And when I eat the sourdough, it is so nourishing for my body. And I think it's because it's winter and I'm needing more of this like substance. Yeah. And I'm mindful of my food and I have cut out meat for, this is the 5th year. And if you love meat, awesome. Be a meat eater. For me, it just like, it disgusts me. It's like, oh, I see it and it just gives me a curly tummy ache. And I'm like, no. And I feel so grateful for the food that I eat, for the way that I eat, for water. I feel so grateful that, yeah, I've been manifesting a healthy self. And I feel like healthy. I do. I feel healthy. I feel healthy. I feel like I look healthy. I feel like I have never been as like physically fit in my whole life. And I honestly practice yoga. I just practice yoga because like Louise Hay told me, that I move my body every day in ways that I enjoy. And sometimes like 2 days a week, probably, sometimes only 1 day a week, I don't practice yoga. And even if I'm just getting on my mat, I've been doing a lot of moon salutations. And it's like this practice from my Shimbhava yoga teacher training that is from my old training almost 5 years ago. But I love their moon salutations. I kind of make them in my own variation, but it's 14 postures. And I just do those over and over and over. And I've been doing those a lot because when I'm not feeling like moving my body, I have this, I literally have my book open and it has the movements in front of me. So I feel grateful that I have a solid yoga practice and I feel so freaking grateful for yoga. So I feel like I've manifested that. And I also manifested the Hive Soul Sisters Collective, even though we've paused for 2 months, but creating women's circles. We had 3 amazing women's circles this year that just, again, like brought these like feelings of, oh my gosh, this is what I was like born to do. I was put on this planet to be in groups of women, and the support and the love and the like connection is just beyond this realm. And I just know that I manifested and brought that energy into my life. Focusing on the good. Okay, as we focus on the good. So now we wrap down to our endings. So with all of that reflection, I want you to write on your paper that what maybe are the, I would say, top 3 things that I need to have closure or put an ending on of this year. What things do I need to acknowledge and honor and perhaps grieve over, perhaps feel pain over? What 3 things or even people do you need to bring closure to create a proper ending for 2022? And if 3 is not enough, I know I did this one practice with Rebecca Campbell and my soul sister when we did our girls weekend. And I was like, I don't have just one ending. But what I came up with for that ending was I needed to end this old negative toxic energy with Rex. And I wanted to open to create new positive energy with him, to be like best friends and partners, to have a new fresh start, because after 20 years, it's really easy to get stuck in all the yucky, gooey, gross crap. That was one ending I wanted to honor. And I honored a few endings in business endeavors. and I honored the ending of Voices Rising Press with my beautiful soul sister, Sarah. We had such an amazing year, and it kind of stopped and it petered away. But we created blogs together. We had 10 months of podcasting. We had such amazing momentum and such this awesome connection. And then it just kind of shifted and changed, and we went in different directions. And I reached out to her probably a month ago or so, and I really needed to like honor that ending. And I actually sent it in a text message, and it felt really good of like so much gratitude for what we created. And you can even go now on voicesrisingpress.com and see all the magic that we created. It was so magical, and it got me so inspired and motivated that I created my book, that I created this podcast. This podcast is running for now 11 months, almost a whole year. And that's magical. And I had to honor that ending. And another business ending of blogging for the We Spot. I submitted my final blog with them. And I blogged with the We Spot. It's this online space for women, just like this space to get vulnerable and real with women. And I blogged for them for 2 years. And I had some amazing blogs with them. And I honored that ending. And I also closed that. And that felt really good too. Like so much gratitude for that space. And I look back at the blogs that I wrote with them. I was like, dang, good job, Shelly. Like you're really authentic. I honor those endings. And I honor also the ending of the relationship that I thought I always needed with my birth mother. Because that's been something that, even talking about, sometimes it's like I honored that ending of the unrealistic expectations of that relationship. And I'm just honoring an ending too of those unrealistic expectations with my husband, that I always feel like the need to reach outside of myself to have other people do things for me. And I honor those endings, and I close that, and I bid them farewell, because I know that deep, deep down inside of my soul that I have everything that I need to accomplish anything that I ever need. And it's not that I don't need support from other people, because I do. But I really have to find that within myself, and I honor those endings. And so you, my beautiful soul sister, I really hope that you can acknowledge the endings. Maybe you have a lot, but really just focus on those big ones, those big transitional or pivotal moments, especially the pain. And really, as we honor these endings, we must acknowledge the pain or the grief, because I know that I have built up such this exterior persona that I always need to be strong, and I don't want to be weak. I am Viking. I'm very strong. And I've really been acknowledging that my vulnerability, my authenticity brings me so much strength. It doesn't make me a weak woman or a weak human. Honoring those endings. Beautiful. Oh, how do you feel? Hopefully you got to write that down. And if you haven't, maybe you can just, if you didn't honor your endings or acknowledge, I really encourage you to do that, because you must do that for yourself. You have to honor and acknowledge them and write them down. And if it feels good for you as you acknowledge all of your endings, to maybe rip them up. I love fire and burning things in the fire, but you must do it safely, because as we all know, there was a horrible forest fire up in Estes that went all across Grand Lake, and it was sad. And apparently there's another fire, I think, in the Boulder area. I send so much love and light to the families that have been impacted, to the homes who have burned. Oh, I send you so much love and light. And I know it's a physical thing, but it's hard. It's a crazy experience. So if we choose to burn our endings, like I said, you want glass. You don't want plastic or metal. It gets too hot, plastic melts. I have a big wide mouth glass bowl, and I fill it up with just a little bit of water. I put it in my kitchen sink, and then I burn it. If that feels good, let it burn. Let that shit go. For real. It's not just like cliche to say let that shit go. We have to let these endings happen as we reflect, as we close down. And maybe in the eye of your mind, if you can close your eyes with me, bring up all of the feelings of all of the endings of 2022. And we give such gratitude. We give so much love. We give so much light for all of these experiences, especially those hard and painful ones. And with an exhale, maybe you can imagine them floating away, or closing the door, or burying them deep into the earth and allowing the earth to transmute them. And it's almost like if you can blink your eyes open, you have a fresh start, a fresh new slate. And so I really wish you a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever. Maybe you don't celebrate anything. Happy whatever it is, happy winter solstice, happy shifting of the seasons. I know for me, I'm not a religious person, but I really just, for me, it's this transition and this honoring of winter and this space of the darkness and honoring that darkness within ourselves. And we have to honor the darkness. And I really hope for you, my Christmas or holiday wish for you is that you can really allow yourself rest and replenishment, because rest is where we do our deep, profound healing. Our deep spiritual practice is found within our sleep, in our dream state. Some say that our dreams are here to show us the way, to guide us in our lives, even when they come in the form of nightmares. It's very interesting. Well, I love you, and please just have a happy holiday season and really find the joy in this moment. And please head over to iTunes and leave Awaken You with Shelly Bond a 5-star rating and a review. It means the universe to me. You can find my book, Awaken You, Shelly Bond, on Amazon right now. Right now. That's real. That's real. That is manifestation at its best. Also, Biddy Bia's Christmas Magic. Christmas is rolling up. Cutest children's picture book ever. My whole heart is just like right there. You can follow me on Facebook, Shelly Bond, or Instagram, Awaken You Shelly Bond. You can email me any questions or comments, or what do you want to hear about? What do you want to talk about? Birth, life, death, what is it? At awakenyoushellybond@gmail.com. Awaken You Healing Center with Shelly on YouTube has amazing classes. I just posted a 1-hour class. It was my final teaching with my soul sister, Jess, who is my beautiful model. Jess, if you're listening, thank you so much for holding that space and allowing me to use you as my student. And together we are always students in this thing called life. I love you. And please listen to next week's podcast on intention setting. So we have come to an ending, but now it's time. It's time to create. It's time to manifest. It's time to we have made room. Now we're a clean slate. It's like a clean chalkboard, a clean dry erase board, a fresh piece of paper, a new chapter, or maybe even do you want to open a new book? I want to write a new book of my life, not just a chapter. I feel like I've ended that last chapter in that book of my life, and I'm ready to write a whole new story. I love you. I'm so grateful for you.